Slide thoda. Okay, thank you guys for joining. Give me 1 second. Let me verify whether I'm audible properly or not. Okay, so let me share my screen and the today topic about the authentication in Zscaler, right? So hope everyone joined. I think thank you for joining, Siv. Okay, thank you for joining, Shruti. Okay, I'm audible, guys. Could you tell me whether I'm audible or not? Could you put in the chat? I am able to see your chats. Could you confirm just whether I'm properly audible or not? Okay, I'm audible. Okay, thank you. Rajat? Okay, okay, cool, got it. Thank you. So today we are going to cover the topic called a Zscaler authentication, how it works. Okay, so the today agenda which we are going to cover. So first we will tell you when user from their laptop trying to hit the google.com, or I can say I will go back to one step and I will start like when user open their laptop and they connected with the internet, then during that case what happened, you know with the Zscaler perspective, how the authentication happen, what steps are involved. So I will cover everything step by step. So we will break down this class in two part. One class today I will give you the introduction, I will basic thing, then I will come jump on tomorrow for the deployment or configuration part, right? So okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, hope I am visible. 1 second. Okay, so this is the authentication part. I will give you the flow update. So how the authentication happen, right? From individual laptop, this is the individual laptop, right? From individual to the internet, I can say internet. How many things are involved on that, on the this color perspective, right? So I will tell you step by step. Let me close some personal thing I open. Let me open whiteboard as well so that I can draw. Okay, so you know how the authentication work, like in your other devices or other like firewall, load balancer, or any device. If you're trying to authenticate the device, right? So you maybe get the two option. Maybe you can log in through locally username and password. Second option, you will log in through SSO. So when I say SSO, it means that have you tried or have you ever noticed that suppose you are trying to log in on any website, and in that website in the login prompt you will see the Google sign in. You can log in with the Google, Facebook, Microsoft, or Office 365. So what those things are, actually those are the in the authentication language they are called SSO based authentication. Basically your authentication, your website to use the Google or Facebook as a identity provider, so they will authenticate behalf of you, and you are not directly sharing your data to them. Instead of, they are using the API of the Google or Facebook and authenticate you, right? So suppose, I think I have some example. Let me is there any sign in option on there? Or I can log in just random try hack me website. Okay, so if you go here, let me log out first. So what I'm saying, that I want it should make sense to everyone, right? You can see the sign in. So what I'm telling you guys, you see these options, right? So these are the SSO. Basically, you are authenticate this particular system to use of the Google, LinkedIn, or direct your company, basically SSO. Instead of you are putting directly username and password, right? So this is called SSO. Why I'm telling this here? Because Zscaler basically directly, you can get the option to locally authenticate, but ideally people are using SML of the Microsoft. So you can put your company ID and password, and then it will redirect to a Microsoft authentication page where you can put your OTP, and after that you will authenticate, right? So let me go back from from start. First, you need to understand there's two type of authentication, right? So location based authentication, and you can see the authentication is location based or user based, right? So what is difference between both location based and user based? Okay. So location based authentication will be happen, suppose in your company you are using the laptop, server, printer, IoT, CCTV camera, right? Or some non I can say smart devices, anything like as I mentioned, CCTV, printers, right? Some other tools as well. So those tools are actually not supported authentication, right? You cannot get the login option there and you can authenticate, then it will redirect to the SML page of the Microsoft and authenticate. I will give you the example of printer, right? So printer shouldn't be support the SML based authentication, right? Printer, you just connected the wire on the printer, and then maybe you just connect with the SSID and it start working, right? Printer haven't get some kind of a screen whether you can put your username and password, right? Not like that. So in that case, those all things, whatever the things are happen within office, it will be happen with the location based authentication. How it happen? User authentication actually not require in that case. Policy can be applied based on the known location only. So suppose I told, right, my office in Pune, and I connected with the Mumbai data center of Zscaler, right? Now if I don't want my end user can authenticate, instead of I can use this one, right? So instead of that, it will be based on the location. Authentication happens. Suppose I apply one policy called a Pune location and allow the Facebook. Now what happen? Instead of it will look up a end user laptop, it will belongs to, suppose, my all 10.1.0.0/16 any IP of end user belongs to this subnet. They are authenticated successfully because they are using this subnet, right? and and instead of user need to authenticate, this directly take care of the location based authentication and traffic forward based on that. So why it use location based? Ideally only whenever you are in the trusted location where your IP external is there between Zscaler to your office, and there is multiple devices which is not supported the authentication, right? In that case you can go with the location based method. Okay. But again, the major advantage is to it will be support all, even that device is not a smart where you can install ZCC, or whether you will not get the option to authenticate, that also will be applied the policy based on the location. So you can apply that policy with the particular location. So any traffic coming from that location, Zscaler quickly identify and put that particular policy, right? But again, this is not a, I can say this is not a recommended method because you cannot granularly control. Suppose I will tell you a good example. Suppose in my Pune office there is 100 user, right? How many user? 100 user, right? So 10 of user are VIP user, rest of 90 are the normal user. Now suppose I I put one policy in like Pune as a location and I allow the Facebook. So in that case, what happened? The Facebook is allowed for all Pune users. So when you are creating the policy in the Zscaler, you guys got that option, particularly location. Okay, I will tell you where you can get it. For now, just understand what is the granularly control. Suppose I want 90 users cannot access Facebook, only 10 VIP users can access Facebook. Now how you can do that? Because policy based on the location should be applicable on all, irrespective of whatever the user and whatever the device that is. So you cannot granularly control basically location based policy. That's why I always recommended go with the this one, authentication based policy, right? Basically user specific policy. So let me log in on the Zscaler portal, and what I'm saying, so that makes sense to you. Let me log in on that. It is A93 admin that the zero trust exchange .com, right? Somebody putting comment. Okay, so let me put the password here. Okay, it's asking for OTP. Give me 1 second. Let me set the OTP as well. Give me guys 2 minutes. This is, I think, first time I did that. Login. Three, 4, 6, 0. Okay, so why I'm telling you the policy can push the location based as well as a user based. User based is the recommended because it will be provide you the granularly control the traffic, right? So let me go to the policy. If I open any one of the policy like which one? Let me open this one. So if I go to the URL filtering, just a normal, you can see the criteria option that there, right? Under criteria, what I'm saying is instead of you can put call user in the policy, you can call the location. So in the location, it will be explicitly apply the policy on the all location. So if you want to do something for some user, do something for another user, that should not happen. So that's why the recommended always go with the this policy, right? So let me, okay, you got the location based policy. What is the limitation of that? Again, the location based policy only work when you already ZR your IPsec tunnel from your router or from your office to the Zscaler. Otherwise, if you haven't IPsec or GRE tunnel, Zscaler never recognize that location, right? So you need to understand the Zscaler should be understand that location which you are going to configure, right? So that's called a known location. If user are in the known location, basically you define that location on the Zscaler GA portal, then Zscaler identify that location, right? Sorry. Now, the different method called authentication based. This is the location based and authentication based. So authentication based policy only applicable on those devices who supported actually authentication, right? Not like as I mentioned, CCTV camera, printer, IoT devices, right? So authentication based means any device which supported the authentication, including SAML, SSO, right? That like your Windows laptop, Android, Mac, right? Linux. So all that supported the authentication. So these devices are using the authentication based policy. So basically, you can granularly control policy based on the user, department, group, right? As I mentioned the example, right? If you want to 10 VIP user that want to access Facebook, rest of should be blocked. So what you need to do, you can create two group, one group called a VIP group. On that group, when you are configuring the policy, allow, you can call those user here, right? And then you can take action as allow. You can see web traffic, and all rest of user you can call as a all user and allow to call that in the group, and then you can deny the traffic. So you can see how easily you can how you can easily understand the and control your traffic, right? Okay, now this is something I can say the how Zscaler authentication concept work, right? So let me tell you, if you can see Zscaler authentication concept, how it works, user are added using email ID format. What is that? Actually, Zscaler never recommended or never accepted if you are putting your, suppose your user ID is Ram Dikshit at the gmail.com, and if you are putting your username like ram.dikshit, it doesn't accept. It accept the full format like ram dikshit at the gmail.com, right? So Zscaler is saying I will, because Zscaler using not only with the single company, there are 500 plus companies are using more than that. So Zscaler actually, if I put at my username ram.dikshit, ram.dikshit, so you can see maybe on 500 user, maybe somebody using the same name, right? So how Zscaler differentiate your username? So Zscaler saying instead of you are putting the username, I need username means including the domain at the means at the rate whatever xyz.com should be there, right? The user member can be used to assign the policies, right? Group members should be reflect the policy privilege. User can belong to 180, 128 group maximum. So you can tag any single user. How many groups? 128, right? This is the limitation. I think it's a huge group, right? Basically, when you are using calling user into that group, it means you can create 128 more than that policies. Department can be mapped the organization unit, business unit, and location country, right? Department, how it divides, suppose in every company there is a HR department, there is a IT department, there is a asset department, there is a finance department. So when you are creating the that kind of thing, you should be create based on like hierarchy. So when suppose I want finance user access any all finance applications, right? Like ICI, HDFC, RBI, all related to finance, GST websites. So you can create one department called a finance, and you can bind those all websites into that rule and call under criteria department and allow that, right? So only those website which is required for your finance user should be applicable. So it's easy to manage. Instead of you are creating single rule with the single user, you can bundle that as an object and create as bundle multiple users into single object and call directly into policy single time, and you can take action. So I will tell you guys what is that object, department, groups. This is something like if anyone belongs to firewall background. I think I'm fast, guys. Just confirm if I'm like fast. I will slow down myself. So the group and department is like in firewall object group. So basically, whatever you are calling or bundling multiple things into the single group, that called a group, right? I will tell you later more about that. Okay, so authentication frequency, like suppose you configure the authentication, but you want when user login laptop, when suppose user login on laptop, you want to prompt the authentication or not. This up to you. How you can decide, right? I will tell you the example. Suppose you set the frequency, this re-authentication based on the beak. Okay. Suppose user visited on the Monday on the office, they first authenticate, then they will start working, right? And till Friday everything is okay. When user back to office, the Zscaler automatically authenticate. But again, so after Saturday and Sunday, once user back again on Monday, they got a pop-up of login. They will log in it, and then again they start working whole week. So frequency is something, when you want to re-authenticate, it is not good. You can every time ask user to re-authenticate, right? Suppose you are putting frequently, like every 1 hour. User suppose visit or go for lunch, again he come back and you asking for authentication, right? So it's more irritating. So authentication is always good. You can set from 1 day to 180, or only once. Only once is not recommended. You cannot only one time user can authenticate, at least week or month wise you can select. Force re-authentication for all users. So this is also one of the option you get. Basically you can force to user to re-authenticate. Suppose if user not authenticate, because sometime if user not able to authenticate from since more than 180 days or more than month, so Zscaler ZCC portal, that particular device showing inactive, right? So what you need to do, force those users to re-authenticate. When they are login, connect with the internet, they should be authenticated. Authentication use a cookies. Okay, this is send about secure channel. So cookies I will tell you later. This is the something when you are bind Zscaler with the SAML, right? Okay, so this is guys interesting for interview perspective as well. So what is the segregate IP? I will tell you the example of that. Then I will back. Okay. Let me. Okay, let me slow down myself. Okay, so segregate IP. What is that? Sorry. Segregate IP actually using. I will tell you the story behind that. Okay. In your company, you are using the printer, right? You are using the CCTV camera, right? So suppose I want to, because I only the recommended you can go with, or Zscaler is saying you can use the policy based on the authentication, based on the user authentication, not a location based. So if you are using the authentication based policy, it means, or user based policy, it means printer haven't any username, right? Or CCTV haven't any username, because you cannot authenticate. You can directly connect internet cable on that, so they got the IP address, not a username, right? Suppose you have, I will give you examples. Suppose you have 100 printer in your company, right? Suppose you are not using the segregate IP. I will tell you that situation. When you are using segregate, then what is the benefit of that? You can compare both situations. So suppose in your company there's 100 printer there, right? And I can say the printer IP maybe start from 192.168 1.10 to 192.168 1.110. Okay, this is the 100 printer. Suppose two printer are having issue, that printer, or I can say 5 printer having issue, that start from 192.168 1.11 to 192.168 1. I can say 16. Okay, so these are the 5 printer which having issues, and you check on the Zscaler log and you saw that the connection is blocking because of Zscaler policy. Okay, that's okay. That's okay right now. and you identify, suppose you go to the logs and identify this particular source, putting the source IP, then validate whether that printer is belongs to correct IP or not, and you find out that connection is blocking, then you can allow that connection and printer start working. Now that logs save into the Zscaler. So after, suppose somebody asks you, maybe your manager, hey guys, could you tell me what happened on before 6 months on the printer's logs? So if you are trying to fetching the logs, right, you will get the IP 11 to 16. But the problem is, because maybe printer connected with the DHCP server, right? So the IP should be changed, right? Not always fixed IP. So the problem is how you can identify what printer having the issue before 6 months, right? It's very difficult to identify, right? Even suppose you have 100 printer, then very difficult. Suppose you randomly got the IP address in the logs, how you can validate which printer having issue, right? Suppose only 10 or 100, 10 or 20 printer having issues, and you randomly see that all printers showing the IP address. So it's very difficult to verify which printer having issue. So what IP segregate does, instead of using the IP address, IP segregate bind your IP into the username. What this means is, suppose I bind like that, I start from 192.168 1.10, I bind as a printer 1, name I given printer 1, second is 11, I bind a printer 2, 1 is 12 IP, I bind with printer 3, .13 I bind with the printer 4. Now what happens, suppose my manager asking what was that printer, I noticed that because I put filter based on the printer 1 2 3 4 5, right? So when I quickly validate, I put at the logs, which logs are blocking, then it's showing that, oh, printer 11 and 12 was blocking that connection. So you can quickly identify instead of the IP address, because username once you bind it always same, right? So it will be easy. And IP segregate only used in that case where the device is not supported the authentication. As I mentioned, right, your laptop will support authentication, your Android phone is support authentication, your MacBook support authentication, but this dedicated IoT devices, printers, CCTV camera, they are not support that authentication. So you can use the IP segregate. Okay, so the benefit of that is the map username with their IP addresses, right? I told you, right? This is important, guys, for interview perspective, this question. So you can map use device with the usernames, so you can easily track down those devices which is not supported the authentication. Second thing, because if any device is not support authentication, how you can put the policy based on user? Suppose I want to put policy printer 1, printer 2, printer 3. Three printer only communicate with their cloud. So you can put the policy, because the IP segregate are using, you are mapping printers with IP to the username, right? But if you are not mapping that, how you can, there is no option, you can call it under user, right? So if you want to use user based policy, then make sure that you are using the IP segregate function, right? Okay. And let me allow user policy to applied in non-HTTPS traffic or unknown user agent. So allow user policy to apply non-HTTPS based traffic. Suppose because most of the traffic you are accessing from browser, suppose any application like right now it's supported, but suppose you are using like Google Earth or any other application, they are not supporting authentication, right? When you are doing that, you require XFF header should be enabled on the location to forward the actual user identity, and traffic must be known tunnel, GRE or IPsec. So what those point is, if you are using IP segregate, you must have a unknown location. Known means trusted location where your GRE or IPsec tunnel is already there. Next option, the you require XFF should be enabled on that location, so that when user or printer trying to communicate to the internet, that actual identity of the printer should be shown in the logs, right? Okay, so user provisioning method is there, right? So let me tell you. So user provisioning happen in two type. One is you can basically create to Active Directory or Azure Active Directory. Second, if you want, you have suppose you have a Excel sheet. Suppose you have a 10 user in your company. So maybe you cannot use the LDAP, right, or not Azure Active Directory. So instead of, what you need to do in that case, you can create a CSV file, Excel sheet, and you can import that data on the directly on Zscaler. So Zscaler take it username and password so that your user can use that to log in. Okay. So authentication prerequisite, what is that? The key concept to understand regarding user authentication is Zscaler solution is the two part. Provisioning. Provisioning means user and group provision into the Zscaler central authority. So of course, because the central authority is the one which hold all information about the management, including username and your location ID and policies, department, everything, right? So first you need to onboard the users into the CA part, central authority. Then provision Zscaler CA varies based on the authentication method your employer using, right? Second option, user authentication. So Zscaler can verify this user identity and apply the correct policy. So first you need to provision that. Provision means your Zscaler should know that all users, whatever the users in your company. Second thing, you can Zscaler will verify because I will tell you, right? So suppose my company have 10 employee. I created 10 username and password on Zscaler. So ideally Zscaler know what is your username and password. The next step is, so you know your username and password, Zscaler know. Now when you are connecting with the internet, you open a Zscaler, it will asking username and password. When you are putting username and password, basically because Zscaler already have those details. So Zscaler match their data with your username and password. So if it is match, Zscaler saying okay, this is okay connection. If not, it will reject, right? So authentication is the method which use. I think it's been very good. I was told you, right? Policy you can define in two type: location based and authentication based, right? So with the authentication, whether you are in the office or you are in the remote, in both situations you can use the location based policy, right? But the, sorry, not a location based policy, my bad, this authentication based policy. But when you are in the office only, so you, one second, you are on the only trusted location. The IPsec tunnel should be connected with you, GRE tunnel, and then it will be applicable only that. Because how Zscaler know that what is your trusted location? Because that identify by the GRE or IPsec tunnel, right? Supported authentication method, it will be good, right? Let me show you the chart. One second. Is it 33-minute class? Okay. I will continue more 10 minutes, then I will prepare that. So you can see this is the Zscaler service edge. So what happen actually when you are configuring policy based on the user and location? Okay, I will tell you in both scenarios. Suppose if the location is known, means you are belongs to trusted location, Zscaler applicable, and you are also using the authentication based policy, it will go here. If not, it will also use the identify that. Okay, let me tell you again. This is interesting, right? So when traffic reaching to the gen node, right, Zscaler enforcement node, what happens? Zscaler trying to identify you are belongs to trusted location. If yes, it will be authentication enable. If no, suppose you are on the remote location, maybe working from home. In that case, how Zscaler identify? It will ask you to authenticate user. It will give you the pop up to authenticate, right? If you authenticate, it will send to the apply policy because it identify you once you authenticate. If not, it will reject your connection. And this is case of trusted location. Suppose you are in the office and it will ask you whether you are using the authentication based, user based policy. It will say, can can authenticate user? If yes, it will apply user based policy. If no, then by default it will go again apply location based policy, because for location based policy you no need to require to authenticate user. Here you can see this, let me myself put here. So you can see in that case connection refused in case of if you are working from home. But here if you are not authenticate, still there is option called application location based policy is applicable on you, so you still can access, right? This is case of known location and unknown location, right? So it will be good, guys. The flow represents very high level of authentication process. Zscaler cloud, right? Is the user coming from known location? If known location coming from a static IP address or dedicated proxy port associated with company account, map the location with the organization aggressively. Okay, I think I already explained that. Let me. Okay, the authentication type. This is important, guys. So Zscaler is supported multiple authentication type, including hosted DB. Hosted DB means what? Suppose your company have a 10 user, right, as I mentioned, or 20 user. So maybe you are not using Active Directory or Azure Active Directory. So Zscaler giving you the option instead of you are, because some of the devices are not supported if you haven't used LDAP. So Zscaler saying, don't worry, I have another option called hosted DB. So for that, what you need to do, you can create a manual username and password. Like, you can go under administrator like this. If you go here, you can see under administrator, you can create your username, password. By the way, I'm using that, but you can see if you go here under authentication, user management, okay, you can create a username, okay, and once you create it, it will be all there here, right? But in that case, if you are not using LDAP, also Zscaler saying, suppose you have a 20 user, you no need to create again and again. What you need to do, you can put it all username and password in where you can put it into Excel sheet and save that into CSV format, and then you can upload that sheet on me so that I can add automatically all username and password. So this is happen when you are not using LDAP in your, suppose this is happen in a small environment, because hosted DBs work only in a small environment because you are manually doing that, right? So this, suppose we have a 10,000 user, how you can create the user, right? It's very difficult. You maybe hire 5 people to do this task, right? Suppose somebody is left the company, you need to delete my username manually. Somebody joined the company, you need to create the username. You also make sure that the password should be changed every time. So there is a lot of challenge. So that's why hosted DB is not feasible for big environment. Hosted DB only happen with the small environment. You can create admin list, right? Hosted DB is DB, both username and password is stored within the database of Zscaler. It is useful for a small organization when SML or LDAP or COBOS is not an option, right? If you are using SML with the hosted DB, security acceleration markup language, SML, guys, people are saying SML is the one which basically you are calling into the authentication instead of directly username and password. You can put, you are clicking on that option, so it redirect to the different page. I will tell you. Suppose you log in on any website where you will see login with the Microsoft. Once you click that, it will redirect to the Microsoft page where you can put your username and password, maybe your company credential. Then it will ask you the OTP. Once you put it the OTP, then it will log in successfully and then back to that website, right? So that happened with the SML provisioning, okay? With SML user authentication, once identity provider for single sign-in, okay. Then third one is the LDAP. LDAP is the again is the simple Active Directory, like LDAP is nothing. LDAP is the protocol of the Active Directory which manage username and password detail of the user, okay. and which that detail provide active directory to Zscaler. So Zscaler aware about the username and password. So when user trying to log in with the Zscaler, they are getting that username and password, right? So the last one is Kerberos. So this is the more standard one, and I don't think people are using that honestly, because most of the people are using SML. So my focus on SML on more, because this is the actually what people are using that. LDAP is the again for whoever not using Azure Active Directory or something, because SML is basically charge you. So there is a multiple vendor available to provide SML like Okta, Ping RD, right? So these are the vendor. Someone using Intra RD, Azure provide an Intra RD to for that service. So we'll discuss more on that. I think okay. So for now we are good, guys. I will cover tomorrow start authentication part, configuration including handshake, how the handshake will be happen in the detail, how many packets are syncing between source to destination, right? So I will cover everything in the detail. So for now, let me bring myself on full screen. Okay. So for now, what you need to do, you can boss. This is the full series of Zscaler GR. Okay. So you can follow that to learn Zscaler in detail, right? And if you have any question, you can drop a comment. And thank you for watching, guys. So we'll live tomorrow. And if you have any question, you can drop. Also put it in the comment, or you can WhatsApp on our number, so that I will try to respond. So thank you all, and thank you. I see there are a lot of people in the comment. Nice to see you guys. Thank you, Shruti, Mohan, everyone. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, and keep supporting. Subscribe our channel, and yeah,